Hi, my name is Jeroen. I'm a level 3 quantum healing hypnosis technique practitioner, trained by the Loris Canon back in 2006 and merrily regressing people into different lifetimes ever since. Today was a phenomenal session. I never know what we're going to get whenever my client walks into the door. And today I wanted to share my experience because it was so multi-layered and so very interesting and kind of different from the kind of run-of-the-mill regressions that we might do. So let's see where to start. So, I take my client through the induction, and then she ended up in what seemed to be an Earth life. We later found out it was California. She was a very young girl that had been left with a family in a rural place to work for this family as a trade for money owed. So they kind of traded their kid off to this other family to just work for them, to work off the debt. So, you can imagine what kind of background that girl came from. It was like very impoverished. So right off the bat, my client, laying down on her sofa, started crying out of, she felt sad, and we found her in a grove of orange trees, and she was very, very sad because she felt lost. She really cried out as a young girl that age. It turned out that she was left by one of her friends. They went out. He needed to show her something, and then he had disappeared. And so I asked her, well, who's this friend? What do they look like? And she started describing something that looked alien. So, immediately this was like, interest peaked. This is something else going on. She started describing that she had this friend. She worked for this family and had this friend who was like the only one that was in her corner, would teach her stuff about life because didn't want her soul to be lost. So there was an acknowledgement of how hard her life was, and this friend, this sort of alien friend, would show her things that would help her maintain her soul. I didn't ask about the specifics of it. This girl would describe that she would be taken into a room, she said, where the others would look at her. So this friend that she described, this weird looking friend, and the others would look at her like she'd be on a table. In this room, she'd be looked at. She said they were moving round object over her body, and she didn't know what it was for. And I had her look around and see if everybody looked the same, like the friend that she had. But then there was some tall blue beings that were there, and upon recognizing one of them, she cried out a name. She called it by its name, and got quite emotional. I called that being closer. I asked, is there anybody here that can answer some questions? And so she called that one being closer. It was feminine. This alien woman in this spaceship room kind of place started describing that she had split off into this lifetime as that little girl in the orange grove, but also several other lifetimes. And this was more or less compulsory from her elders, because what she described was that she, as this alien being, later we found out she was from Arcturius, I never know which one it is, and she was in charge of biology and DNA and flora and fauna on different worlds. If something was threatening to go extinct, her job was to collect a specimen, a live specimen, and then take it to a beautiful place in the realm of the planet where she's from. They had special habitats for all these species that were about to go extinct. It's almost like a zoo, but a kind zoo. So where there was a complete habitat, that would provide for them. But she would go around the universe and find about to be extinct going species and take specimens and take them to her home planet where they would be giving habitat, because it was too important. They were too important to be lost. Their DNA would be too important to be lost. And that's what she would do. But that her elders had told her that she needed a lesson in humility and compassion, because apparently her bedside manner was not compassionate enough. She was not very concerned and had patience with the emotional freakouts of these beings that she would go and gather to preserve them. In the process of this, she was kind of cold, I suppose. So she was told that she needed to go experience what it was like to be on the other end of suffering, or like difficult emotional, different experiences. So she explained that she had been split off into different experiences. One was the little girl in the grove, but also the other one was the woman who she is today in our current life, and then other ones as well. And it explained that all these lives are happening simultaneously, which is congruent with other experiences in different sessions with other clients, where the subconscious explains that everything happens in the here and now. From the perspective of the soul, it's all happening right here and now, all happening at once. So when the current experience was mentioned, of course, then you always, as a practitioner, try to get as much information from this higher level of awareness about the current life. My client came in with a list of questions, both physical ailments, emotional ailments, stuff that she wanted to get help with. So this was my first point of contact of a part of her consciousness, of her soul really, that would know more about her existence than her personality would. So asked lots of questions. It was very helpful in providing lots of information and needed quite a bit of negotiating. Like I really needed to pull on my negotiating skills, because she also wasn't very compassionate for her human experience, which is so interesting. I really had to sort of barter with her, or make her understand how difficult it is once we split off into a human experience, that it's really like, fighting in the trenches of experience compared to her level of consciousness. She explained that from Arcturus, by the way, she had a different name for it in their language. It's called Elam. It was like a prolongated A in the word Elam or something, but that it was nine-dimensional. And so she didn't have a lot of compassion for her human part that my client is right now. And part of her human part's purpose was for her to experience pain, to understand it, and then to learn about humility and compassion first and foremost. That was the purpose. So there was a bit of negotiating that needed to happen for her to allow her current existence here in a human body to let go of fear, to let go of the experiences of the past, because she was worried that she would forget and kind of make all the lessons be futile. So we went back and forth over this, and finally she agreed, with conditions in place, that she would release my client's anxiety and panic and lots of physical ailments as well. Like that she had stomach issues. What else was going on? Thyroid, a tumor, a benign tumor. Those are the basic ones. So cleared it and explained why she was clearing it. There was no more need for them, except for the thyroid. There were 2 issues that weren't cleared on the spot. They would be clearing later on when she was going to be going to bed today. And then another one wasn't really necessary to be cleared. It was more like a guide to keep her on track in terms of the kind of food that she would put in her body. So she was told that she should stop eating animals, and this comes over and over and over again, different sessions, that would be better for her, and that the experiences she'd been having were reactions to food that are just too crude and not energetically or vibrationally matching her system. So that's why she would have these physical responses to them. Her system was just so fine-tuned and sensitive that it would respond that way. So yeah, it was just super interesting to talk to this female being that was quite fierce. At one point, she said, nobody fucks with me, which is always funny, like to hear these other beings have that kind of language. I really enjoy it. And she finally agreed that she would allow more of herself, this Arcturian being, to come into the client's life so she could live a life with more access to her worthiness. That's really what happened. There was kind of a healing that was taking place in the heart, and then she would be able to move forward in her life, like experience more joy and more access to her worthiness, and in turn be able to have better boundaries and have more discernment, so she could live a life that was more aligned with, who she is and what makes her feel good. So, which is the path that we're all on, by the way, as far as I'm concerned, the people that I work with, my own life. So if there's any doubt about, in your experience, about what you should be doing, I always say, find your joy. Find your joy, the joys for fuck's sake, the joys that are not results of getting rewards or approval or acknowledgement, just the joys that just are. All of your sensory input just letting you know this just fucking feels great. You know, that kind of joy. Just stuff that makes you come alive. You know what that is, hopefully. So, super interesting session. Lots of healing taking place. I was super excited. The whole thing took like almost 2 hours, and when I counted my client out, she barely remembered the details of it. She was kind of aware that there was stuff going on, and which made me really surprised, or not surprised, but curious about what she's going to experience when she's going to listen to her session. Because I don't know if the language and the metaphysical, evolved metaphysical concepts that she would talk about as this Arcturian being, if she knows about them in her human experience, that might really blow her mind. I don't know. We'll find out, hopefully. So, I just wanted to share this really interesting experience. To also let you know that beings from different dimensions, they're all on a learning path as well, like a learning curve, just like human beings, but just on a different level. And, and this particular being just came to Earth to learn the concept of humility and compassion so she could better serve in her capacity as this being that would gather these specimens from different planets and stuff. So, normally if there's such a thing, most of the time my clients find out about their life purpose. They might be learning about humility and compassion, but to be able to do certain work here on the planet. This time it was more about learning humility and compassion to be doing work in space, as I explained. So, super cool, slightly different from the other sessions. So I just wanted to share and hopefully, make you inspired, or maybe you recognize some things, or maybe you are inspired to have your own session done and find out what other parts of you are roaming the galaxy, or maybe you're inspired to learn how to do this technique yourself. So in any case, an easy place to start is to Google Dolores Cannon or start reading some of her books. It's a good way to get interested. All right, so this was Jeroen de Wit reporting to you from QHHT land. All the best. Much love and light. For more information, go to my website, jeroenqhht.com, or my Instagram page, Jeroen is Love.